Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use MakerFlo's glow-in-the-dark powder with resin. Now, you guys know that I don't do a lot of resin content here, but I wanted to make a really cool project with this using my laser. And so I'm going to show you what I've made with my laser and how we're going to make it even better with this glow-in-the-dark powder. This whole video came about because I was doing a video with MakerFlo and Angie Holden all about different Halloween projects you can make with MakerFlo supplies. And offhandedly, Sam from MakerFlo mentioned that she had done something similar to this, and I literally was like, I have to make this. So I've been working on this project since the day that we filmed that video because I was so excited about seeing what I could do with this particular product. This is just one thing you can do with this particular powder. There are so many other ideas if you are a resin crafter, but I wanted to take something, make it my own, and I am super excited to share it with you in this video. Now, everybody has a different type of laser. There are so many different lasers out there right now, so I'm not going to go into detail about how I made this project because it's literally just cutting two pieces of acrylic. It is not difficult. If you do not have a laser that can cut acrylic, you can totally make this with wood as well. I do have a free file for you, and that can be found in my craft library. Just go to heyletsmakestuff.com/library, and there you can find the password to sign in. Once you've signed in, you can search for the project L16. That's laser 16, and if you search for that on your computer, you'll be taken down to it. You can also scroll down to the laser section and grab it. There you will see three links. The first link is the actual download for this project. The second link is the blog tutorial for this project, and the third link is this video if you ever need to come back and refer to it. So let's take a look at what this file looks like. So we have just a giant circle. So this is the backing piece. You can make this whatever color you would like. I am making the front black, so you do want something that will contrast. So I tried making this with a dark purple. It didn't work quite as well. I really like this particular acrylic. This is from Cerulean Tides. I will go ahead and link to it. It has this sort of like wavy, it almost looks like a planet. I really like it. And because I am not an orange girly, I did it in pink. The second cut piece from acrylic here is this haunted house. So you'll notice that I have it masked on both sides. We're gonna pull the mask off the back, but we are going to keep the mask on for the front to start. If you are using a material that isn't masked, I highly recommend that you mask it because it's going to give you a much cleaner project in the end. Now let's take a look at the other things you're going to need to make this project. Almost all of this is from MakerFlo. They did not sponsor this video. I just really like working with them. But basically you can get all of this on their site. They do have a beginner resin kit that I think includes most of this. But if you want to buy the pieces individually, that's possible as well. So to start, you're going to need your UV resin. So this is not like an epoxy resin where you have to mix different pieces. This is just a one-stop UV resin. It's really easy to use. Then you're going to need their glow-in-the-dark powder. This is just a small container of that glow-in-the-dark powder. You're going to need something to mix everything in. So I have this little tiny silicone bowl. You may want some resin tools. So this is my first time using these, and I love them. So these are from MakerFlo, and it comes in a pack of 3, and it basically has 2 different silicone tips on each side. So it has sort of a flat tip on one side and a pointy tip on the other side, and they allow you to work with that resin really well, more than like a popsicle stick or something like that. I find a weeding hook really helpful for removing the masking. And then you'll need something like a little spoon or something. So I'm just using my Cricut spatula and then I'll wash it. But basically this is for you to be able to get that powder out of this little jar so that you can put it into your resin. I also have this really great resin mat. So this is just sort of a silicone mat that goes underneath this. I really like this. It kept my work table so much tidier when I was working on the test projects for this. This is such a silly little thing, but man, I really like it. And then you're also going to need a UV light to cure your resin. So your resin is going to remain liquid as long as it's not cured. So you're going to need a UV light. This has a bunch of lights underneath, and we'll basically place it over our project when we go to cure that UV resin. And like I said, you can use whatever materials you want for the actual construction of this laser piece. So like I said, this is acrylic and this is black acrylic. Again, you could totally use wood. You could paint wood. You could do something that if you have a diode laser and it's not going to cut this very well, you can definitely find alternatives out there. All right, let's start making our project. So the first thing we're going to do is actually remove the masking from the back of this piece. So I want my haunted house to sort of face this way. Honestly, it could face this way as well if you wanted, but I want it to face this way. So we're going to remove the masking from the back. Now, I like using a weeding hook. The back is completely going to be glued to this other piece that we have over here, so it doesn't really matter if you accidentally scratch it. So honestly, just go at it. And we're going to remove all of the backing. Now I will say that this particular acrylic that I'm using is matte on one side and shiny on the other, and I wanted the matte side up front. It really doesn't matter if you wanted the shiny side, you could totally do that, but I wanted the matte side up. So I'm just gonna remove all the masking on this black piece. And once we're done with that, we can move on to the next step. All right, it's hard to see on the black mat here, but I do have all of the masking off that back side, and I still have the masking on the front side. Now we're gonna glue our two pieces together. Now normally when you're going to attach two pieces of acrylic, there are just some specialized glues that you're going to need. I meant to mention this earlier, but I just have some clear tacky glue. Normally this would not be the best choice for acrylic, but because we're also using resin, which is going to basically attach to this back piece and the front piece, this is just enough to get it to sort of all stick together until the resin part comes. And because of that, I think we can just use the cheap glue. We don't need to go with the 2-part epoxy glue that normally you would want to use on something like this. So yeah, so we're just going to add a little bit of glue to the back of this. I'm just gonna kind of spread it around with my finger. Honestly, we're just kind of getting it stuck a little bit. You don't want it to like seep through, so if you have kind of thick glue, make sure you spread it around pretty well. I'm gonna flip it over and attach. You could also use double-sided adhesive, put double-sided adhesive on this before you cut it and peel that back, but I have some, but I don't know, this felt like it was just gonna be the much easier and less expensive option that I've used so far, because also that other stuff is so sticky that if you don't get this circle placed correctly right away, then you may have a problem. So let's just make sure everything feels sturdy. Now you may want to let this sit and dry. I'm not going to do that because I'm filming a video, so I'm just going to be really careful and just make sure that I don't feel like it's, you know, becoming not like aligned anymore. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it and we can move to the resin part. For this glow-in-the-dark resin, I basically want to fill in all of these windows. We want to fill in all of the windows, this little door piece. I mean, you could, if you wanted, fill in the entire sky, but I don't want to do that because I really like this piece of acrylic back here and I think it looks like a spooky night sky. So for me, I'm just going to fill in these windows. We're going to start by adding some epoxy to our little jar or our little bowl here. Not super full, but you are going to need, you know, that's quite a few windows. So let's make sure we fill them all up. And then we're going to grab our little spatula or whatever spoon you have, and we're going to open up our glitter here. And you can see it's a very, very fine powder. And I'm just going to take like a small scoop and add it. Maybe a little bit more, make it super glowy. You don't have to add a ton. Now here you could also add some glitter, like a really fine glitter. I did that on one of my projects and I really loved how it looked. However, it got really gloopy, and so it became a little bit hard to get into these very small window pieces. So I've decided not to do that, but you can totally give it a shot if you'd like. Now I'm gonna take one of my little tools here, and I'm basically just gonna stir all of this together so that I have all of that glow-in-the-dark powder suspended in here. I actually think I might want a little bit more. This is not quite as full as I thought it should be. Let's see, let's add a little bit more here. I don't want to add a ton, but we do want to add a little bit. There we go. Make sure you put the lid back on because I just spilled a whole bunch of glitter the other day. There we go. Continue to mix this around. Yeah, that feels more like what I've been doing on my tests. So I kind of have this sort of milky kind of mixture here. And now we're just going to carefully drip it and put it into these, the little holes here. So I'm gonna grab the one that doesn't have resin all over it for the other end here. And I'll show you how I do this. So I basically kind of scoop up a little bit of resin with the end there and place it in, oops, in the window hole. And the reason we kept the masking on here is that if you do drip or you do not, you know, you don't make it into the window quite perfectly or you smear it, we're gonna just peel all of that off so you'll have a really beautiful surface. So you can use your little resin tool to kind of get all the resin into all of the corners. And we'll just continue to do that for all of the different pieces we've got here. And you do want to make sure that you are getting a decent amount of resin in each hole. You can see the acrylic through the resin. And when it glows in the dark, you can definitely tell where you've used enough and where you haven't used enough. You may need to like play with it. This is the third one of these I've made, so I kind of know how much resin I need to put in there. You can always make more resin. So now you can see that I have these 4 windows full. I'm going to go ahead and do that with the rest of them. All right, I have all of my windows filled in. The last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and just see if any of them look a little bit low. So if they feel like they just don't have quite enough resin in them, I'm going to fill them up. You don't have to like fill them up all the way, but you don't want that pink to show through, or whatever color background you're using. So I'm just adding a little bit more here. Anywhere it feels just a little bit thin, you can definitely tell when it's glowing that you didn't use quite enough resin. So this is kind of the thickest I've done it, but I think it's gonna work. It may take a little bit longer to cure under that UV light, but I think it's gonna look even better. Now the cool thing about these tools is because they're silicone, and when I say tools, I mean the little cup I have, these little tools, and the mat, we are basically gonna cure those to clean them. So we're gonna harden that resin and it'll wipe right off the silicone. It works really, really well. Now there are 2 ways you can try here depending on what you feel like doing. So the first is that you can cure your resin with the masking still on this acrylic piece. That makes me a little bit nervous and I haven't done it yet because I'm afraid of the resin sort of sticking and cracking and not pulling up this, the masking very well. However, if you do pull up the masking now, you have to be really careful because you still have a bunch of wet resin in here, right? It's still liquid. So basically we're gonna grab our weeding hook and we're gonna take the masking off of this very, very carefully. I really didn't have a problem doing it the last time I did it. Again, I filled the little windows a little bit fuller this time, so we'll see how it goes. The problem is, if you smudge this resin across the acrylic, you can see it. There is just like no good way to clean it up, at least that I found. You may wanna try a little bit of alcohol, maybe a little Goo Gone, I'm not sure, but really the best thing to do is to just not get the resin on the flat part of the acrylic, you know, at all. So we're just gonna go ahead and remove the masking here really, really carefully. So I'm starting by removing all of the pieces that aren't directly connected to that resin just to get them off. For the triangle tops here, I do find it easiest to go from the top down. I'm not sure why that is. I've set a couple of these now and it just seems to peel off easier coming from the top down. So again, we're just gonna pull that up really carefully. I don't know if you can tell in the overhead, but I did get a little bit of resin just right here, and then randomly up here. So I'm gonna go grab some Goo Gone and just see what I can do to kind of see if I can bring that matte acrylic back to how it should look. Okay, I got it cleaned up pretty good. The Goo Gone worked really well. It's just you have to be really careful around all of the still wet resin. So I think there's still a little bit of Goo Gone residue on here, but I think 1, it will evaporate, and 2, I can actually clean it up a little bit better once the resin has been cured. So now we're gonna grab our UV light. This is also from MakerFlo. I'm going to set it to the 182nd setting, and I'm probably gonna do this 2 or 3 times. I just wanna make sure that my resin really is cured. I'm also going to cure my tools here, and I'm going to wipe off any resin that's still on them, plus the little bit of resin that's left in here. If I cure that, I'll be able to just pop it out and reuse this little container. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll come back and we'll see how it turned out. Okay, I have cured it, but before we do that, I just want to show you that now we are not dripping, our resin is hard. And we can, with our tools, now peel off just all of the resin bits that are on here that have been cured. One of them didn't get quite cured. That's just a little damp. Let's see. Yep, okay. And then in here, like I said, you can just pull out the resin. There is some around the edges here, but I can just kind of pick it out with my fingers here. And now you can reuse your little cup again. The same thing will be true for your mat. If you ended up with any resin drips or anything like that, you can go ahead and cure them, and then they should just peel up directly from this mat. Now we need to see if it glows in the dark. So I'm gonna try shutting off the lights in here. It's very dark outside just because it's a very rainy day. And I lived in the Pacific Northwest and it's dark here in October. So we're gonna go ahead and see what this looks like when I put the UV light on it. Okay, it's not perfectly dark, but you can still see the residual glow that I got here just from it being in the light. So I'm gonna grab my UV flashlight. So this one has a UV light. I'm going to basically charge the glow in the dark, and you can really see here just how cool this project is. This is such a small little weak light, but overall, I mean, isn't this cool? This is such a fun project. The glow doesn't last, the brightest glow doesn't last forever, but honestly, just working with this stuff makes me so stinking happy. So that's how you use MakerFlo's glow in the dark powder with their resin. There are so many other ways you could probably use this particular product, but I just had to put it in windows in a haunted house. It's almost Halloween. I'm super excited about this project. If you want to make your own projects like this, I will go ahead and link all of those supplies down in the description below. If you have any questions, of course, please ask those in the comments and I would be happy to answer them. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, please give it a like. Follow my channel for more crafty content. I'll see you next time.